Greg?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Greg, thanks for joining me.
Hey, this is incredible this week.
We called you, your jury, huh?
Yeah.
Well, tell me about it.
Oh, it's amazing that this happens to thousands of Americans every day. They'll let murderers go free, Bob, but if you miss jury duty, they'll hang you. I mean, they call it the most important civil duty, and it's really a shame that they've convinced America how the jury system is such a good thing.
Yeah.
But
well, tell me your experience.
Okay, what they do, they put us down in this holding pen. They call it the jury assembly room.
Yeah.
The jury, the JAR, the jar. They stick you in this jar with like 300 other people for a whole week.
Oh, man.
And I figure it's like being in jail, only jail's a whole lot better because jail's a lot cleaner and has much better lighting.
Oh.
And we have to pay for our own food, and we don't get to go outside, we don't get free HBO, and we don't get to talk as much, and we don't get health care, and we don't get conjugal visits.
You don't get any of that stuff?
We don't get any of that stuff.
You mean criminals have it better than jurors?
They need to be putting them in jury pools.
Oh, instead of in jail?
Instead of in jail.
Oh, imagine that. Your sentence is 3 years as a juror.
Oh, well, that'd be cruel and unusual. But
right.
Anyway, you're with this huge group of people, and they call you up 24 people at a time to be potential jurors.
Right.
And Bob, the fact that they say they randomly select a jury, that's a big lie. Because although the group of people they put in the jury assembly room, the jar, is random, once you're called for a jury, the jury selection is very specific.
Ooh.
They'll grill you in voi dire, just ask you all sorts of personal questions.
Oh, right, once you get into the jury. In fact, a friend of mine, his wife went for jury duty in Jefferson County, Colorado.
Okay.
And before they were called into the courtroom, they were asked if they had ever heard of the New World Order.
Oh, huh.
Isn't that unbelievable?
That's amazing. That's just, they ask you questions your own doctor would be ashamed to ask you.
Oh, well, that's a good point.
Well, and if the attorneys and the judge don't like your answers, they'll just send you back downstairs.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, you've got to remember, I don't want to serve on a jury, and it's my prayer that I'm not allowed to participate in this system.
Yeah.
But if I'm forced to participate, at least I want to state my objection and tell how wrong it is before I'm forced to participate.
Right.
So, anyway, I think there's very little chance they'll let me serve on a jury, but what happened, they called me up yesterday, and my eyes had to adjust to the light once I came out of that dungeon holding area they put us in.
Right.
And the judge asked me if I'd have any trouble serving on a jury, and I answered the question. I smiled and was polite, but I said, well, yes, I would, and he asked why, and I had to tell the truth, and I told him that, sir, with all due respect, I think the whole system of justice by committee is really corrupt and evil.
Oh, you said justice by committee.
Justice by committee. And until that point, this whole thing was boring, and immediately I had the rapt attention of everyone in the room.
I have no doubt.
And I didn't,
You spoke the first words of common sense probably all morning.
So the judge asked why I didn't like the jury system, and I told him that when justice is decided by a committee, that no one's responsible for whatever takes place.
Ooh.
And this judge looked at me, he's a nice guy, but he looked at me sternly and said, what better way would you have it? Would you want me to judge a case all by myself? Which I thought was interesting considering his title is judge.
Yeah, right.
I honestly think he expected me to say no. But I looked at him, and as you can imagine, I looked him in the eye and said, well, frankly, sir, that's exactly what you should do.
I like that, Greg, let me interrupt you. I like the story. But, okay, so tell me. So you tell the judge, I'd rather you decide.
Yeah, and I said, you would be accountable, you know the law, sir, with all due respect, you would be held accountable for your decision, and therefore there would be many more accurate decisions made. And he muttered something about how if I were on trial, I'd want a jury of my peers evaluating my case, which is not at all true because the attorneys would first of all make sure they weren't my peers, and if I were innocent, I'd want to be judged by someone who knows the law, not by 12 people, but anyway, the assistant district attorney then wanted to question me.
Yes.
And this assistant DA, I don't know what you picture, but she is a quiet-spoken, young, little waif of a girl. She's probably very competent.
Wait, the prosecutor?
The prosecutor. Wouldn't you want someone who comes across, if you were hiring an assistant DA prosecutor, to be a fierce, foreboding person?
Yeah, you mean the prosecutor's like a dainty lady?
Yeah, a real nice little girl.
Yeah, wait, so in Tulsa, let me understand this. Tulsa, for a mayor, you have a Savage, and you have a dainty lady for a prosecutor.
That is
Susan Savage, your mayor there.
Yeah, that's the name she goes by. It's not really her name.
Not her real name. She goes by that because she wants to present a fierce image to the competition.
Yeah.
Mary Hall.
They don't. Yeah, right.
Right.
They only care about image and the system.
Yeah. Okay. So the dainty lady prosecutor, what is she saying?
Okay, she wanted me ask. You could tell she wanted me up there after asking me a few questions. For instance, she asked if I'd be able to judge another human being. And many people that she'd asked that before, of course, hesitated. Even a lot of men wimped out.
You know, I bet you they asked that question in part, people are going to think I'm like paranoid, to weed out the Christians.
Okay.
Because it's Christians who would say no to that because so many are ignorant. We'll be right back. All right, going right back to Greg. Greg?
Yes, sir.
All right, so you're talking to the dainty lady prosecutor.
Yeah. I know you've got other callers. I'm about to wrap up.
I have great callers, but go ahead. This is
okay. It's interesting you said they want to weed out the Christians when they asked if we'd be able to judge, because when she asked me that, I immediately said, oh, but we're told by God to judge others all the time.
Whoa.
And she smiled, because I think she liked it.
Yeah, a prosecutor would like that.
And so she said there'd be witnesses of all kinds in this case, including perhaps police officers and gang members. And she asked if I'd think a police officer would make a credible witness. And when I said a man trained in observation would be one of the most credible witnesses possible,
yeah,
I think the defense attorney was about ready to tell his defendant to shoot me just as he'd probably shot the other guy.
Right.
But so anyway, she sat down. And up until this point now, I'd smiled at the judge and at the prosecutor. And then when it was the defense attorney's turn,
you're so polite and cordial all the time, Greg.
Well, I appreciate that, but I think that those two people demand respect and deserve respect.
Yeah.
And of course, when the defense attorney stood up, I just glared at him, and because I'm not too sure, maybe I'm stepping over my line here, but I don't really think they demand respect.
Oh no,
in virtually no situation would that be.
Quite the opposite.
And so at one point, he asked me why I kept using the term justice by committee. And I started looking around astonished at the 11 people sitting around me in the jury box. And before I said anything, he quickly asked another question. And I think he said, so do you think your vote counts? And I said something like, I don't really think my vote should count in a court case. But even so, all of us have to unanimously agree on a guilty verdict before this guy's guilty. And one vote doesn't mean much. And that's really corrupt.
Greg, what a great point. My vote shouldn't count. Is justice a popularity contest?
It is in our court system.
Right, and so is governance in our system.
Right.
But it shouldn't be a popularity contest. You got, one of Rush Limbaugh's undeniable truths of life.
Yeah.
A woman should not be allowed on the jury where the accused is a stud. All right, you got the Menendez, two good-looking young guys, and the women acquit them and invite them up to a party after the trial.
That's right. It's incredible. So, but he sternly reminded me that his defendant was innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And I said, no, that's not really true. If he shot, and this is thanks to you, if he shot the guy, he was guilty the moment his finger pulled the trigger.
Well, you said that to the defense attorney?
Bob, he hated that. He hated that.
If he shot the guy, he was guilty the moment he did it.
He pulled the trigger, and he told me, no. I had, he said, no, he's innocent until proven guilty.
Oh, so if somebody rapes and murders a woman, they're not guilty.
Yeah, that's right.
They're not guilty.
Until 12 people vote.
Right, until you have a popularity contest.
Yeah.
Then if they smell good.
So
See how dumb defense attorneys are?
What?
See how dumb they are, defense attorneys?
But right. What do you expect? They're defense attorneys. But anyway, he said, would I be able to do what the judge told me to do and fairly treat this client of his? And I didn't say, I'm not a fool. Of course I'll do what the judge says. But I said, I'll do what I'm told. And he said, so if the other 11 members of the jury tell you that this man is innocent, you'll do what you're told. I said, no, they're not my authority figure.
Yeah, that's a Greg. Hey, Greg, this is all too good, Greg. So do you have to go back?
Yeah, I have to go back in that jury assembly room. I have to be put in the jar in the morning.
In the jar. So you weren't chosen for that trial?
About 15 minutes later, when it was his turn to get rid of a juror, he said, Mr. Perry, please step down. And, of course, I gladly stepped down.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, Hey, Greg, just imagine if you were on the jury and the guy was a murderer, right? Yeah. And many of the jurors were incompetent, as many jury trials reached the wrong conclusions, many. People who do the right thing are often convicted, and obviously guilty criminals are often acquitted by juries. And just imagine if your jury could not come to a conviction if he was guilty, and the guy's off waiting on an appeal or retrial or whatever, and he kills somebody else.
The blood's on our hands.
Yeah, on the juror's hands, and on the defense attorney, and on the judge who didn't want anything to do with the outcome.
Right.
He only wanted to be neutral, really. What do they call him a judge for? Hey, Greg, we're out of time.
You take care.
I'd like to talk to you later in the week, hear more.
You got it.
All right, thanks so much.
Sure,
That's
bye-bye.
Greg Perry. I tell you, we're so judgmental. When we get together, we're just terrible. The things we say about defense attorneys, I can't even. Actually, I don't discriminate. I say it about all attorneys. My mom taught me, Robert, don't discriminate. So I don't like any attorneys, except for Roe. He's my good friend. But there's hope for him, too. This is Bob, and I remind you to do right and risk the consequences.